Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Lissade, and I love real estate. This is episode 3, and we're going to be discussing the housing crash. Let's get into it. All right, so to understand what a housing crash is, you got to understand the different types of markets, where we are, where we're heading, and what the data is saying. All right, so no surprise, many of you guys probably figured out that we're in a seller's market. But what does a seller's market mean? A seller's market essentially means where there is where there's low inventory and high demand neighborhoods. And essentially the economy is pretty good. You have a lot of people that with good credit and really good income looking to purchase homes in the best of neighborhoods. So that's where we're at right now. And that would be a seller's market. Now, another thing too, with the seller's market, you typically have less than 6 months inventory. I personally like to really think of it more of a less than 3 months inventory. But, technically less than 6 months is a seller's market. Less than 6 months inventory is a seller's market. Next on the list is what's known as a balanced market, which essentially means the demand and inventory are pretty much equal, and that usually ends up being around 6 months of inventory. That's where you're likely to get a lot of negotiations back and forth on price. Economy is still pretty good. There are still a decent amount of people out there with incomes. And although demand is strong, inventory is also meeting demand. Now, in a buyer's market, that's when you have excess inventory, which is in in very highly desirable neighborhoods, as well as all other types of neighborhoods. And that's usually associated with some type of economic shock, which causes a lot of people to not have the disposable income or the money saved up to make purchases, as well as the credit markets have tightened, which usually means much higher interest rates. So with that being said, some of you probably already guessed what a crash looks like, and that would be an extreme buyer's market. And we're essentially talking about inventory in excess of 6 months, maybe pushing 8 months, 10 months, maybe even a year before things get closed out. You're also talking about because there's some type of economic shock, credit markets have tightened. You're starting to see an unusual amount of foreclosures and people behind on their mortgages, which gives people the opportunity, people that have the means, the opportunity to go in there and potentially get a property at a fantastic price. All right. So right now, we're in a seller's market. How and why would we transition from a seller's market to a buyer's market? Well, as I stated before you get to a buyer's market, you would most likely get to a balanced market. So what's going on right now with the market? Right now, in my area, which is South Florida, mainly Miami and Fort Lauderdale area, the areas I follow closely, we're in a state where we're way less than 3 months inventory. So what does that mean? That means the majority of homes being put on the market are sold way below 30 days. Case in point, there is an agent in the office that I work at that recently took a listing, worked with the sellers to appropriately price the property, decided to have one day of open houses, and they had 300 people show up at that open house. Just to give you an example, prior to the pandemic, you were doing well if you had 30 people come through your open house. She had 300 people come through, and she got 26 offers. To make a long story short, the house was off the market within less than a week. So another thing that happens in a seller's market is that in addition to having a bunch of offers, people start making very competitive offers. They start waiving things like no appraisal contingency, no inspection period or a very low inspection period, no finance contingency, all cash offers, um, asking prices, making offers with um, over asking, um, including escalation clauses, which basically means that if someone makes a higher offer than they're making, they're willing to match it or even put more on the table than the other person. So that's a seller's market, and that's where we're at right now. I'm sure a lot of people have heard the real estate market around the country is going crazy, especially in places like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach. So now the question becomes, how does that transition from a seller's market to a balanced market, then to a buyer's market? Well, let's look at the conditions as to why it's currently a seller's market. A, there's low inventory. What's causing low inventory? All right, so I'm sure everyone, unless you've been living in a rock or in a cave someplace in the middle of the woods, everyone realizes that we went through a very tremendous shock called the pandemic. The pandemic constrained supply chains. What does that mean? It means that the builders that are building apartment complexes, houses, townhomes, etc., they're having difficulty getting those materials because there's a shortage. Another thing that also happened is the war between Russia and Ukraine. That is further constraining the supply chain. And then if we go back to the financial crisis of 2008, a lot of builders ramped down their building efforts from there, and they never went back to 100%. So even before the pandemic, we were experiencing a bit of a low inventory, and the pandemic just accelerated that. All right, so that's why we have low inventory. Oh, another thing too, there was a speculation that the millennials were basically not the type that were going to form families. They're too busy running around traveling, taking pictures all over the world, jumping from city to city, that these guys were never going to settle. They were going to become permanent renters. And I'll get to that. I'll get to that a little bit later. All right, so that explains inventory. Now let's talk about demand. Why do we have such strong demand? Well, let's take a look at a few things. Prior to the pandemic, the economy was strong. So people had the incomes. Credit or interest rates were low, which means most people with good incomes and decent credit scores had access to credit, and they still do. Then you factor in the pandemic caused a few different things to happen. Number one, people felt that because of the pandemic that there was going to be a housing crash. Now, from my perspective, on 2020, I saw deals happen, and this is more so on the commercial side, between from March to about early June. I noticed some transactions that definitely did happen that seemed to be well below market. However, after that, I did not see that. If anything, I started seeing very sharp rises in properties, and that's everything from residential even to commercial. And the main reason that happened is because a lot of people felt and jumped into the market looking for deals, and because so many people jumped in the market looking for deals, that actually drove prices higher. So another thing happened as well. Obviously, the pandemic caused a lot of people to leave heavily urbanized areas or areas that had high infection rates, and to weather out the pandemic in other parts of the country. This led to some people basically deciding to stay. I mean, they essentially tried out living in other parts of the country, and they found out that they could live there. Then when you add to the fact that remote work now has become a thing, that further exasperated the situation. Case in point, you take a young professional or a young couple that's living in a 600 square foot apartment in Manhattan, paying $5,000 a month. They come down to Miami and they could trade that for a 12 for less than that. They could get a 1,200 square foot 2-2 or 3-2 overlooking Biscayne Bay for less than what they had at a 600 square foot apartment in Miami with a view of another building. So with that being said, a lot of people relocated to those places. They took their high paying incomes from high cost of living cities and went to lower cost of living cities. And that also drove up the prices. And another thing too, it's a little morbid, but this does factor in. As of last time I checked, over 1 million people have died of COVID in our country, which is a very sad stat. And I believe last time I checked, half of those were over the age of 55. There are a lot of people that got, unfortunately as it is, because of those COVID deaths, they received early inheritances, which has also caused people to move around, to look at their options, and is also fueling the demand. All right. So now that's where we are currently. We're in the seller's market, low inventory, strong demand. How long will this last? Well, the answer is I don't know, but I'm just using data and the numbers to guide my decisions, right? Which is what I encourage people to always do. Don't just listen to me or whatever talking head or the armchair real estate guy or whoever. Always use data and the numbers to guide your decisions when purchasing a home, whether it is for you to live in or whether it is for you to invest in. So with that being said, looking at the data, looking at the market, as I said before, supply chains are constrained. That is a major problem. Estimates say we're looking at 3 to 5 years to get the supply chains either back close to where there was. In fact, some people are saying they may never be back where they were because a lot of skill and technical expertise shifted. Because obviously, if you're someone that was at a job for 15, 20 years, you had a high income and you were in a position that was related to the supply chain and then your company closed down or laid you off, chances are you probably went and found another job. So that becomes part of the problem, getting that knowledge base back, because like I said, most people probably could not survive on unemployment and due to necessity had to move on to either another company, another career field, maybe they started their own business, etc. So that covers inventory. As I stated right now, demand is still very high. Like I said, the economy is still very strong. There are a lot of people out there that have really good incomes. Credit markets have not tightened. They've begun to tighten. And I know some of you guys are like, well, Roger, what? I mean, interest rates are going up. Surely that has to mean that real estate prices are going to go down. Well, in the case of what I just told you about the agent in my office that, had an open house, 300 people showed up. She had 26 offers. Okay, so interest rates have gone up and that is going to take some people out. But if out of 26 offers, the interest rates going up means that maybe instead of 26, maybe she gets 15, maybe she gets 10. That's still a very competitive market and it may not affect prices as much as people think they're. Now, will that mean, could we potentially see interest rates slowing down prices of homes, the rise of prices of homes slowing down than what we've seen in the last 6 months or a year? That's very possible. But will that now cause a crash? The answer is almost unequivocally no. So now let's talk about a balanced market. What would we need to see for a balanced market. We definitely would need to see more inventory or less demand caused by people either being too nervous to purchase or potentially a loss of income or even more tightening of credit. So what do we mean by that? All right. So right now, interest rates have gone up a bit. Historically speaking, mortgage rates have been between 6 and 8%. For most of the time they tracked mortgage rates, and we're nowhere near there yet, right? So, like I said before, that there would have to be more financial shocks, more foreclosures, economy taking a turn. And I understand right now we have inflation going on. They're raising interest rates. Some people say that may cause a recession. I think most experts would say that we're still pretty far away from recession territory. So now let's talk about a buyer's market. So now we're talking about a buyer's market. What would we need for that to happen? Well, we would definitely need a lot more inventory than we have right now. We would need the credit markets to be extremely tight, which means that interest rates would have to be significantly higher than what they are now. And in addition to that, we're probably talking about there would have to be a significant economic shock that would cause a loss of income to a significant amount of people that would bring down demand. So right now, everything that I'm reading about in different sources, I don't see any of that happening anytime soon. In fact, I recently attended a Keeping Current Matters with Richard Bass. He's the broker of my brokerage. And he hires a third-party company that runs analysis and does research on this. They're predicting a strong real estate market at least for the next 2 years, possibly 2 to 5 years. So although all this information, I mean, I could be wrong. The data could be wrong. And that's always possible. However, the market is suggesting that, yeah, we still have a very strong real estate market moving forward. So what does that mean for you guys that are watching this video? Well, it essentially means that unless there's another black swan or something very significant happens, we're probably not going to see a market crash in the housing market anytime soon. Now, let's talk about what at least some of you guys watching this video might be able to do now and how you can take advantage of the way things are now. And in talking to people that are waiting for the crash, I've tried to explain to people that right now, let's say houses are at $100,000. We're just going to use numbers to keep them simple. 2 years from now, houses go up to $200,000. And then 3 years from now, they go up to $300,000. And then in year 4, there's a crash and it comes back down to 250 or 200K. Now, is 200 more than 100K? Hopefully, everyone watching this can say yes. And the reason I bring this example to bear is that there are people that I've spoken to that in waiting for the crash, they've missed out on opportunities. Because the chances are right now that a house that you buy now, if you wait 3 to 5 years down the line, even if you factor in a crash, it's still going to be more expensive. All right, let's say something crazy happens and 5 years from now, maybe it even goes back down to where it is now. But there's another variable. There's a pretty decent chance that even if that was the case, interest rates will still be higher, which means the cost of that house will still be more. So basically, that's what I want everyone watching this video to consider. Instead of waiting for the market crash, go out there, talk to people, start reading up, start watching YouTube videos, different sources, and look for opportunities now. Because the fact of the matter is, when you're dealing with real estate, whether it's a seller's market, a balanced market, a buyer's market, there's always opportunities. Anyway, guys, I'm Roger Lissade. Hopefully this video helps you guys out. Just let you know, I'm very new to YouTube. This is my third video. Just upgraded my mic and my camera. I know a couple of people that made some comments about the bed in the back. Hey guys, let me know how you think I could improve this video. Let me know if the sound quality is good, the video, if you hate the bed in the back, if you love the bed in the back. Just comment below the video. Let me know what's going on, and I will see you guys soon. All right, guys, have a good one.